For today's cup of coffee, Kid is gone over the weekend having new experiences, and hopefully it's hard to tell what kind of stories that he will bring back with him. It's always interesting. I have a very interesting story, and I'm going to try to modify the way that it was written, because most people, this is actually supposed to be sort of a early morning wake up with your coffee type show. And not everybody wakes up rough and wants to hear about disturbing things, but I figure that's why you're here, because disturbing is our shtick. It's what we do. And this comes from Mirror and is by Lee Bullen and Charlie Duffield, and was written on May the 9th of 2024. And more than 500 coffins and 200 sacks of human remains, which were still in the decomposition stage, have been identified in sheds at a cemetery. Yeah, I'll let you get another bite of your bagel on that. And it says that the body parts were discovered in 4 buildings that are not morgues or used for the preservation of corpses. The majority of the human remains, which included children, were not found with identifying information. So just random dead people laying about. There's a push to have random dead people laying about. It's just, this was a different country, and so they haven't got to that stage yet. It says the discovery took place after an audit carried out at La Plata Cemetery in the city of the same name, which was close to Buenos Aires in Argentina, and that the mayor had called for several audits in the city to guarantee the transparency of his new administration. They identified 501 abandoned coffins and more than 200 bags of decomposing human remains in 4 buildings in the cemetery. And authorities said they first identified 16 wooden coffins in the basement of a temple building. Having come across the scene, inspectors identified a nauseating odor. Well, yeah, that sort of goes with this type of finding, and said that the coffins had supposedly come from vaults and niches. I don't know. It says the coffins were in disrepair and lying in puddles of stagnant water. So I would assume, and this is an actual picture from the news article, I would assume, the way that this is, that there are inhabitants in the coffins. The coffins themselves are actually quite beautiful. I like the toe pincher styles. And it says the authorities said that this was not the product of natural wear and tear, but an act carried out deliberately. Well, how in the hell would it have been natural? Most people don't stack up human remains. It says that they added, in this sense, we suspect that with respect to the vaults and niches in which the coffins probably came from, there could have been some fraudulent handling of them. End quote. Well, yeah. So I don't know if they were reselling the vaults, maybe, that this was just some kind of racket. That's not unheard of in America either. So it's not just an Argentinian problem. In the second building, known as the Wake Room, investigators found over 200 bags with human remains and bones, along with another 15 coffins. The third space, located on the second floor of the building near the cemetery entrance, the authorities found 340 adult coffins and 22 for kids. And there were also body bags with skeletal remains, along with human bones, scattered all over the floor in the fourth building, known as the Sand Shed. Maybe they should have had a lime shed, and that would have cut down on some of the odor. And officials found 107 coffins and more body bags with human remains. The council will analyze the findings before filing a complaint with the public prosecutor's office. What is there to analyze? Honestly, if these people were paid to properly bury, or whatever you want to call it, the human remains, and they did not. That's pretty much all that you need to analyze. There was some fraud going on here. It says they're trying to clarify the facts and those responsible. They also said, quote, all these sites were in a very poor state of organization and cleanliness, with strong odors, stagnant water, and even skulls on the floor, end quote. Yes, the skull should have at least been on a shelf somewhere. It is unknown how long they had been kept in these conditions. Well, the state of decay should tell them that. And the authorities also vowed to identify as many of the deceased as possible before giving them a proper burial. A spokesman said, quote, this is extremely serious given the complex spiritual, social, and moral elements behind it. We believe it not only harms the administration of this public service, but also the community and especially the relatives of the deceased, end quote. Well, yeah, that's sort of disturbing. And it's interesting, we have discussed this on several cups of coffee, as far as different funerary rituals and all that goes around with the practices of different cultures and things like that, and the industry that goes with the death of individuals. And it used to be that was a family thing. That was a sort of a private thing. At least it was in this area, that you had people that were local, that they would make coffins, and that you had family members or relatives that they took care of the body of the deceased. They would sitting with the dead. That was a thing here in the mountains for quite a while. And that it wasn't a matter of embalming. It wasn't a matter of letting somebody outside of the family take care of these procedures. And then the people were buried on, in a family cemetery or on their own land or something. The government and all these other things were not involved. And all that has changed to where you have to, currently in Virginia, you have to get some kind of permission to be buried on your own land. And I understand people's like, oh, well, it has to do with water and all this. Unless you're going to be put in the water tank, why? We don't have sewer systems where I am and different things like that. There would be absolutely no, as far as groundwater contamination. But it's a matter of the government always having to have some kind of finger in everybody's pie from cradle to grave. I mean, even as far as the birthing process used to be handled by midwives. I don't know about y'all, but I am just very, very weary of some of these people that want to take control of everybody else's lives. And I'm sure that the people in Argentina feel the same way. Now, they probably have the same customs that we do, as far as they've got the coffins, and the coffins are beautiful. They're beautifully made. That style of coffin is called a toe pincher. It's one of those that's been around for a very long time. You know that they paid for those coffins, and that this cemetery disrespected their wishes, and they may have either placed the coffins in the vault. They don't look like they have soil on them. So more than likely what they've done is just pulled out the coffins and then resold the vaults. It's not unheard of in America as far as cemeteries burying someone and reselling the plot. Either they buried somebody else on top of the already existing vault and coffin, or they dug them up and God knows what happened to them. We've heard worse stories that have come from here in America. And this type thing happens, and yet dude who was, whether you agree with it or not, people who collect skulls and human bones and different things like that, he's doing some time over that. And it was a matter of grave robbing and stuff. This could feel, there could be a need. And everybody's like, oh, Orlando, honey, you were stepping over boundaries. For people who, I don't know, the body and the sacredness, I get that. But in other cultures, as far as to have a skull as a memorial to an individual, what's wrong with that? If it's your relative or something like that. I mean, if I die and youngest kid, whenever wants to dig up bones and do something artistic, okay, I don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't want strangers' remains because they didn't give permission. So we've got some that we need to rethink about human remains in our funerary customs. Not everybody. I mean, some people. What's the difference between having a skull sitting someplace and the cremated remains in an urn? I don't think, for me, it's not disrespectful. For other people, if it's disrespectful, don't do it. But don't store your people here in just a shed and pretend that you've buried them. Now, somebody does need to do a little bit of time over that. So, looking forward to hearing your comments and your thoughts on this one. If you've had experiences with the paranormal, supernatural, encounters with UFOs, aliens, cryptids, all that good stuff, all the weird, because that's what we deal with, is the weird. You can send us an email, cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com, and that email address is there in the description box someplace. I will put the link to the article also in the description box. Those of you on BitChute and Rumble, you get the link. And YouTube, because they still have not, for whatever reason, passed me to be able to provide a link. Y'all just get the article, and if you want to look it up, you can do that. All you do is copy and paste and all that good stuff. Like, share, subscribe, all those good things. We are on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble, and on X, and it's Warlanda, COCWS. I think that's correct over there on X. And know that you are loved. Treat other people the way that you would like to be treated. And Lord willing, we'll see you on the next cup. Bye.